All right, everybody. I know you've been waiting patiently for this amazing topic tonight. So we want to welcome you to the I Am Me Millennial Explosion International Video Chat channel. And my name is Deshaun Halsey Sloan. And tonight I have the privilege of co-hosting with my husband, Alfred Sloan.
What's going on? So I wanted to introduce our two good friends, Moses and Sarah. How are you both doing?
We're doing well. So happy to be here. What an honor.
Good to see you guys.
Excellent. We're glad to have you. So before we introduce our guests, we're going to go ahead and share a little bit about the IME Millennial Explosion International Group. This group was founded by Prophetess Beverly Douglas, who was given a vision by God, which is to mentor and propel young adults aged 21 to 39 into their destiny, purpose, and assignment. Oftentimes, this age group doesn't have a voice in the body of Christ. So this platform is a safe place for them to be heard.
Awesome. Well, right now, really quick, I'm actually going to have my husband. He's going to actually read a little bit about Team Ihambe. So go ahead, babe.
So we've known these beautiful couple for quite a while. We met back in college. To give you a little bit of history on Moses. Moses was born and raised in Texas. As I said, we met back in college at ORU. He met his wife there. He's played basketball professionally in over 10 countries and 21 cities. Sarah was born and raised in Iowa. She went to ORU and got married at age 20 and started traveling with her husband while he played basketball professionally. They have 5 children and have lived in 6 countries and 19 cities. Man,
wow.
Y'all lived in more places than I done visited.
Wow.
That's awesome. So, hold on. They have retired from ball and have moved back to Tulsa, where Moses works for ORU, and Sarah for a local pharmacy as she finishes up her first book. That is awesome. We're actually going to be visiting Tulsa, so we will definitely be hitting you guys up when we're back in the area.
Yes, I cannot wait. I'm going to let you guys speak a little bit. Can you just greet our viewers really quick?
We feel honored and privileged to be able to be here speaking with you guys. Please pardon our background and our staging. We are currently in the middle of filming for a production play over at our home church. Provide them to watch it, which will be showing live stream on the 7th of this month, or the 8th of this month. So you can see our church body and ourselves in action. But that's why I have the gray hair. I'm not used to that.
I thought it was from the girls that you have.
Kids. Those 5 kids.
Oh my gosh.
Look, I have one, and my hairline's been running ever since.
We're not going to talk about this hat, but anyway.
Because they start taking care of the little ones, and it's, kind of autopilot. But yeah, I think below 3, it's probably more challenging, or equally. I don't know.
Yeah, but thank you so much for having us. We feel honored. Sarah, do you want to say?
Yeah, we're just thrilled to be a voice that God would hopefully use to speak into your life. I know for Moses and I, we got married very young, 20 and I believe 22 for Moses. And then right away we were in foreign countries for the last 10 years until we just retired. And so it was not always an easy route, not having consistent resources. And as Alfred had just said, there's not a lot of voices for our generation teaching us and telling us what choices to make on the path that we're in singleness, and also while you're dating. And so we are so happy to share any experience that could be useful to y'all in order to shape you guys in your singleness as you step forward looking for that future somebody that you would, forever do life with.
Yes. Sure. I'm gonna start with the banger here. Okay. So I was going down the EMR. Alfred, you know what I'm talking about. The EMR
dormitory.
The dormitory, coming down the elevator, and the doors open up, and Sarah's sitting right there by the front desk, and all I could see was her, and the light from the sunshine is just curls are going all crazy. And I'm like, I was in the elevator with my boy Yimi Ogunye, and I was like, Yimi, is that an angel? I want that one. I want that one. And then when it was over. It was over.
I remember the elevator opening, ironically. I mean, you walk past people all the time on campus, but ironically, I remember the elevator opening and 2 slender African-American figures, which are generally the profile of athletes on campus. And at that point, kind of had a reputation on we're here for scholarship or because parents made me, but not because necessarily they're known to be these, striking men of God, if you will. And so in a judgmental way, you could say, but more just as what I was just used to encountering. And plus, athletes were all of my friends growing up in high school. So my brain, like, I've already dated y'all, and that's why you're my friends and not my like boyfriend, if you will.
Mhm.
And so when I were open and I saw these tall gentlemen in the not the airplane, the elevator, I was like, I actually was annoyed. And so I looked away as long as I could until they cleared the building. That way I could, again, wait for the people that I was waiting on. But anyway, it's just kind of the irony of the moment.
Oh, so that's how it happened.
Okay. I don't want to hog on the question, so I'll let Alfred go ahead and go. Because I do have a question, but go ahead.
I know she has a question. She's definitely good with the questions. Ironically, we actually, so similar story. That was when I actually first saw Deshawn. At the time, I was not interested in her. So Sarah, I can relate a little bit. And then fast forward all the weeks and days and months later, she found me on the swings, and then she's been feeding me candy ever since.
I didn't find him on the swing. Okay. So now I have to chime in because my part is very important. So I did not notice him either in the EMR. I actually met him in the cafeteria. And during that time, yep.
Shout out to Saga.
During that time, I was actually talking to someone else. So I wasn't looking at him either. And I was just hungry. And he had the last bowl. What was it? Captain Crunch? I don't eat that anymore, by the way. But back then, that was something I ate. Yeah. And he seemed like a nice Christian person. So he didn't touch it. And I was like, can I have that bowl of cereal? And that's kind of how we first met.
Wow.
Yeah.
But yeah, it wasn't really a genuine interest. Say again?
I was going to say, ironically, our first proper introduction where I knew who he was, because at that point they were just silhouettes.
Right.
Is in Saga. That's normally the route that we go. He just took it a step back. But that's where we met. Is a mutual friend stopped me, or I had to
like
give
the
him
first
paper.
hello. Like
Yeah.
the first
Right.
time we
And
spoke.
so in front of a buffet at Saga, and again I saw the figure to my left that was tall, so I just was trying to quickly give a piece of paper and get out, and then sure enough the guy was like, hey, let me introduce you to my friend, and he kind of was using his slick voice, like, look at this
was
pretty Vashon.
Vashon Green. Yeah.
Wow.
So he introduced me to Moses, and then when Moses shook my hand, he's like, your eyes are beautiful, but he said it with such purity that it actually brought me to repentance, which I know is a strong word, but I don't use a light word. I mean, I don't say word that in my heart. I actually repented to God, and I was like, man, that was really judgmental of me to think that, lust has to always be the motivation if they're an athlete on campus. And so I remember walking away and saying, God, I'm sorry that I judged him. I could feel such purity when he said that. And then that was all, though. But still, that was our very first encounter. And then from there, things started happening.
No, we can go into a little bit later, but I'll tell you what. You guys know my husband as long as I've known him. And you see him now, he has a beard and all these great things. Back then, no offense, babe, I love you, but he was like a 12-year-old.
I gotta go.
So he was very young. So I actually had a chance to watch him grow into the man that he is. So I wasn't really thinking about him. You know what I mean? My eyes was not there at all. So I totally understand where you're coming from. All right, now we're gonna move on.
So one of the questions that we get as far as dating and with us being married for almost 14 years now, what does the term dating, kind of mean to you? As far as our relationship, I can kind of speak a little bit to that. But as far as you guys are concerned, what at the point when you met each other, what kind of was your criteria for dating? What did that mean to you?
Dating means getting to know another person, not in my mind, not physically, but more emotionally, more spiritually. Especially with us getting in a relationship, we went to a place that was of a kind of higher level, because both of us were in relationships before meeting each other, and they weren't the best of relationships. It was one thing before entering our relationship. We wanted to honor God before we needed to do, so we went through our fasting, our praying.
And so
Alfred, how about you? What does the term dating mean to you?
Before we got married, I wasn't really interested in the conventional dating. I kind of was at the point where I had already made the mistakes that I was going to make and chose, and what kind of wasted some other people's time. The longest relationship before Sean was roughly about 6 months. So it wasn't anything against the other people. It was just that I realized that that wasn't permanent. That wasn't going to be forever. So, you know, I kind of made the decision that whatever I was going to get into next was going to be forever. And that was pretty much it for me. One of the bigger criteria for me specifically was that she would be a woman that was after God's own heart, kind of similar to, you know, what I esteem to be. I'm not going to say I'm 100% there, but you guys back on?
Okay.
Perfect. Yeah, we can hear you.
He's finishing up sharing his what he was saying and meant to him. Go ahead.
So when I was kind of, just to let you guys kind of get settled in, I was telling them that basically my criteria when I decided I was going to date Deshawn was having a woman after God's own heart. I had made, you know, some decisions that I realized wasn't permanent earlier, you know, before her, and so I wanted to make sure that the next relationship I got to was going to be forever. And so after obviously several weeks and months of dating, and even years, we decided, we went ahead and got engaged. And now 14 years later, after marriage, we are with what, 3 children? Yeah,
that's how many. I was like, yeah, for me, I never dated casually. Anyone that I was dating, it was going to be for the purpose of marriage. So I wish the first person that I dated would have turned that way. But sometimes you end up dating whatever happens. Anyway, I'm not going to go there, but I wouldn't have preferred to date as many times as I dated. And I think if I was listening to what God was saying and those who are around me who gave me sound advice, that I wouldn't have wasted some time with some good people. I'm gonna say good people because I don't think everybody that's your ex is a bad person.
Yeah.
There's somebody else's next or whatever, or the one. So now on the way back to Sarah, I think she's still, if she can hear, and go ahead and expound on what you were saying.
Okay, and so with my story, there was a chain of boys from the time that I was a girl all the way up until I entered into college, where it just was one. And by the time I got to college, my mom called me like the heartbreaker, because I was like missionary dating, where I would date a guy, getting him to church. My grandpa would lay hands on the Holy Spirit. And then after it got my feet, I just thought to myself, well, there's not an increase of godliness or change. As you know, if we were to have been the godly couple, we might be just join the Peace Corps. Once I graduate, I just made the decision that no one would be godly enough or value holiness enough that I would ever be able to find anyone ever, especially if I had been all the way till 18 now and entering in college, and none of the many boys that I had dated needed else. And so when I got to you, in my eyes, were amazing. And me and my friends group, I was kind of like the goody two-shoe, even though I had done like everything, but I still was considered the goody two-shoe. And so to meet a whole group of just girls all over campus who are beautiful but have never been kissed and never tasted alcohol, I thought, geez, lack of leadership is a huge issue in my life, and it's something that I'm going to grow in. And so I met a girl who said, and quite a few girls who said that we're going to call God and we're not going to date. And I thought, my husband, I understood God as a father that I revered and I feared and had an adoration for. But a husband was just something that had never crossed my airwaves before. And it was me stepping into a time of intimacy with the Lord so I could understand him in a way that I hadn't before. And so I made it a point in my heart that, okay, if God is my husband, then I will not text or entertain any conversation outside of him, because that would be cheating. And so I made it just like my goal or my mission, if you will, around September-ish, that God was my husband, if you will. And then a couple that probably around November, there was this roommate date thing where each wing in different dormitory to go on a date with a roommate. Your roommate is the one that chooses it, and it's just for fun. So for me, it didn't feel like it was breaching contract, because it just was, again, for funsies. It wasn't looking to see who has the other yellow ribbon on their wrist so I can know who I'm supposed to be on a date with. And I figured it just was a goofball from one of my theology classes or something. And then sure enough, I look and it's Moses. And at that point, I already knew Moses had a crush on me, because his friends messaged friend, and I wasn't so interested because he chose not to tell me himself. So I already was not a fan. I didn't like that it was a friend telling my friend who told me.
But it was date night. That wasn't supposed to tell you.
No, it was when he thought I was cute, and Yemi was trying to tell me. We can talk about it later. But anyway, so I wasn't.
Answer.
I felt like it was kind of, I guess, weak, you could say. And then also on top of that, I felt like Yemi, his best friend at the time, was probably doing that for him with lots of girls to see who's easy, who's ready, who's going, and who knows what they were even doing. But I just wasn't in that scene. And then it was me, just a ball on campus. Whenever we had athletic chapel, Moses, I saw him preach one time, and he was.
All right, so I'm going to ask you, Alfred. So how did you know I was the one that you wanted to date?
I didn't know that.
Oh.
Funny,
okay, I think they got kicked off. They'll come back, I promise.
6'5", 215.
And that's all I heard.
Special variety dark chocolate.
All right. I got
Ironically, that's how I met Moses. Moses is one of the funniest guys in me. Very humble dude, but it's hilarious nonetheless. I didn't really know at the time when I met Deshawn that she was the one. I asked God to make it clear to me so that I was able to better understand and see the criteria, not the criteria that I was judging at that point in time, but the criteria that's going to take me from where I was at then all the way to my last breath. Obviously, there's a saying that she has as far as her willingness to obey him. But one of the things that I was really interested was God make this clear to me. It wasn't like, oh, there was an audible yes or, oh, yes, I definitely knew she was the one. As soon as I laid eyes on her, I didn't have that experience. I asked God to make it clear. I knew the desire that I had and what I wanted as far as who she was, but I wasn't sure if she met the criteria that God had for me for the woman that was going to take me from dating all the way through marriage, or be with me from dating all the way through marriage. And so I can happily say after 17 years
of dating you.
Of dating and marriage.
Dating is what we're talking about. Well, go ahead.
Well, dating and marriage, because we've been married for 14, or actually almost 14. I've learned quite a bit, and I can tell you unequivocally that my criteria for dating when we first started has progressed substantially. So what about you?
So I will say I knew from long ago that my father would confirm the one whom I was going to date to marriage. And so though I have dated other people before my husband, my father said a solid no to the ones that I dated before meeting who is now my husband, Alfred. So
forever.
Yeah. So I know that's not everyone's case. I know some people might be in a case where maybe their father's not living, or maybe they don't have a great relationship with their father. But my father was not only my father, but my spiritual father. And so that plays in a different role. And maybe you might have somebody in your life that is like a father to you. I think definitely listening into their advice definitely helps when you are seeking God about the one. But it doesn't have to be everyone else's story. If you hear a story about someone who got a dream about this person being the one, that could definitely happen. Or God could speak to you in a way. But you could also make yourself dream that somebody's the one by what controls your thoughts. But I think where it came in between me and my husband was desire. God speaks through desire. Yeah. And after us becoming friends and getting to know each other and things of that nature, I definitely would say I had a strong desire to be married to him. And I saw him differently and not as the boy. Like I said, I first saw him when we initially dated. All right. So the question I'll ask.
Wait, hold on. Before we get into questions, the reason why she's talking about boys, she keeps saying that. Hold on. We got young genes in my family. So most of us, until we hit about 25-ish, look like we're teenagers. I didn't have any of this facial hair. I always had long sideburns, but didn't have any of the facial hair. All of the trappings of being a man or the things that people get obsessed with never really was my focus. My focus was on internal and on focusing on what it is that God wants me to be and how he wants me to be. So as my wife was kind of saying, you know, the criteria that you have for the person that you're dating or you're choosing to date or looking for, it's going to progressively change as you mature and as you develop. You know, so don't get bogged down with one criteria over another.
Do you feel like there's a specific environment that a single person needs to be in order to begin dating?
A specific environment.
And I'll give you an example. Like I've heard some, and I'll use women because I've never heard a man say this, but like I'll be single forever, and maybe they're always in the house or whatever. So is there a specific environment? Could you be in your house all day and possibly begin dating? Like
I don't think so. I'm the type of person where, I mean, I think the best place to get to find your wife or significant other or a person to date is in the church, you know, because as you're in the church, you're like-minded, you know what that person is striving for, significant other. Like, my wife and I, we always talk to our baby girls about, and our son about their inside pretty, and my son about his inside handsomeness, right? And I feel that is cultivated with being in the right environment and in the right atmosphere, you know, in church, right? Because that's where you're fearing God. You want a relationship with God. You want to have His characteristics, right? The fruits of the Spirit, right? And I feel like by surrounding yourself with like-minded people, that's why with meeting like ORU, that's like a hub for getting a ring by spring, right?
about do you feel like there's a certain type of environment that people should be in when they're dating?
Well, kind of piggybacking off of what Moses was saying about faith. Yeah. Well, faith being works is faith without works is dead. One of the areas that that we both were in agreement with was action. If this was truly going to be a path we were going to embark on, we would obviously need to act on it. So I didn't wait until after we had graduated, and I was like, well, maybe we could get married to start saving. As many of you know, the husband's responsibility is to speak with the father or the person that's in charge, and to kind of move forward in that. So my the environment that I really think is conducive for that, aside from just church, is making sure that you're able to be accessible. If you're always stuck in the house, how's the person going to meet you? How are you going to meet new people? Is it going to be like somebody going to have to break into your house in order to find you there, or is it going to be something that's going to be a good environment to have other people come back into? One of the biggest criteria and challenges that I think many people face is not being able to have themselves accessible. And as kind of like Moses was saying with Sarah, and obviously with my wife and I, with us meeting in college, we were relatively accessible to each other, even though we had not co-ed dorms. We had dorms that were nearby, of course, but they were separated by sex. The benefit is that we were accessible. And I feel like a lot of times when people transition out of, college life or whatever, when they're more accessible, they just can unintentionally become reclusive. And that can be a challenge to have somebody that, can find you.
Definitely. How about you, Sarah? What do you think about the specific environment someone should be in?
Yeah. Both of the men have said, I think we can't expect there to be a move if we're not willing to move. And so it can be a frustrating thing to meet girls that their heart's in the right spot, they're saving themselves even, whatever the circumstance might be, but the rotation is the same. And many people have heard this cliche definition of insanity, but it's doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results because I have faith. And it can almost be like mockery, I feel like, to God, as in if every day your trip is to travel to the sink to brush my teeth, to travel to the toilet to do my thing, to travel to the refrigerator to eat, and then to travel to work, and then to turn around and go back and then do pit stops at church once a week or twice a week when we already know that everyone's 80 and older, or whatever the case might be. We can expect that God could do something, sure, but there's also so much more we could be doing. The same amount of time that you're taking to scroll on your phone to watch maybe someone else's life, and I say this with love, not with condemnation, but instead of maybe growing with what you're missing out on, we can take that moment and maybe go to like the park or to a gym or somewhere. I mean, obviously I would say as many church groups as possible. And yes, we do want to be faithful to one to one house in particular, but if there's prayer meetings on Monday that don't conflict with my Sunday or Tuesday, potentially you might have peace doing that if you know the elders or your family or your community has your blessing. In my opinion, there may not be a reason why you couldn't be plugging into a singles group on Thursday and doing this on Saturday morning, joining a volunteer group on Sundays. If you want your husband or your wife to be someone who's serving, then you have to put yourself in positions where servants would be at. And if we're complaining that all the guys that I date are, because I'm a female, you know, all they want is my body, but not my heart or my mind, or blah, blah, well, where did you find them? Was it through Facebook messages? Was it, as in, that's usually where people are shopping and not generally being sincere. Or if you're going to clubs or you're going to bars or places where people are seeking comfort from substances, then you will also become a substance that someone will find comfort in. And that's not the type of crowd you should be from. And so as you grow in your knowledge of who you are and whose you are and who you belong to, you realize, what does royalty have any business doing here? And as you begin planting yourself in places where you respect couples that have established themselves, then what you see is what you become, and it can be a positive thing versus sitting and wallowing and being stuck in a bedroom like a princess locked up in a tower. And, you know, and so there's ways that we can impact, and for those that feel like they're doing all these things and they're not seeing a breakthrough, to not grow weary in doing good, but to keep on fighting the good fight and trusting God and saying, okay, I'm doing all the right motions, but where's my heart at with all of this? And asking, instead of saying, why, God, why? Changing it to what would you have me learn? What am I practicing that wouldn't go over well in a marriage? Am I waking up and serving my parents if I'm still at home? Or am I waking up and is my home clean? Are the dishes done from the night before? What behavior can I work on as a mate so I can be pleasant to live with for when the time comes, so that I can prophetically practice right now what I will be in 5 years or in 2 years?
Yeah, I think that that's good. And I think that on the flip side, there's people out there who maybe they were, you know, serving God or whatever, and they end up meeting somebody in the club. I don't think that's a place where you should go, but they could meet somebody also who was in church that was running from a club. The issue is, even though you both know God, you guys are going to bring tons of baggage into that relationship, and there's going to be tons of things you're always trying to fix. And so I think that was sound advice that I think we were all kind of saying, is going to places of people of like-mindedness to find that thing what you're looking for, or putting yourself in position to be found. So really quick before, okay, go ahead.
And so you said something that was actually really, really important, Sarah, and I want to highlight that. You need to understand that there are people that are looking for comfort in different substances, and a lot of times that substance, when you're younger, when you're I don't want to say immature because I feel like that's a bad term. When you're inexperienced, is to quickly find yourself falling down the physical trap. And there's a lot of benefits that come with it, but there's a lot of skewing that comes with that as well. Once you find out that, there's certain things that are no longer accessible only in marriage, it kind of changes your perspective of what you're really trying to approach as far as purity is concerned. So, one of the challenges that we see that many people have, or some of the people that have talked to us, was, stumbling before marriage. And obviously we want to make sure that, we're parents, we want our kids to enter marriage pure. We hope that they won't experience a heartbreak in their life. But at the end of the day, we also understand that, it is a possibility. And so we have to equip them not only for, making wise decisions, but also making decisions that will prevent them from certain harms that come in the confines of potentially becoming somebody else's substance. And so, I really wanted to highlight that because it's very, very important. And with all of us meeting in college, meeting our spouses in college, it's one of the criteria that can potentially be lost, if it's not highlighted. So, okay, go ahead.
I think they want to say something. I see Moses or Sarah itching. What do you guys have to say about that? No, just thirsty. Okay. I thought your mouth was like.
Oh.
Okay.
One thing that I think is also important to underline, especially as females, we're all visual creatures. Men tend to get more of a reputation for that, but I would argue women are just as much, probably, but maybe not as much. The point is I think that because as women we're always we want to feel wanted, we want to feel needed, we want to feel loved and acknowledged, and that can translate sometimes to how we dress, where because we do want to feel loved and cherished, then with well meanings we dress in a way that would attract a man to how our body looks, because what we're really saying is, look at me, notice me, am I enough, am I special, do you see what I have, and is it worth it, is it worth you to stare a little bit longer? And we perceive this as positive attention, but what it ends up by accident attracting is the guys that are in it for the visual and not in it for the heart. As in, if you caught what Moses said, he said that Sarah and I dated not to see who each other were physically, but so I could see who she was emotionally and spiritually. And that's a great difference. Dating modern days versus a biblical worldview is, let me get to know her heart and her spirit first to see, is this woman fit to be a mother and a wife? And then after that, then physically, that's the result or the benefit once we're married. Then we get to start dabbling into, now I get to enjoy the fruit of my youth, the woman of my youth, or I guess my labor, my toil, the journey that I took to get there. Now I'm able to enjoy the benefits that come with that. But if she's not a match to my heart and a match to my spiritual walk, then she most definitely cannot be a match to my physical flesh. And of course, the enemy has it the opposite. Let me undress the package and then figure out the rest from there. And it gets your emotion, your mind, and your heart all tangled up. People in these emotional, just chaos. They get able to think clearly. And so, in my opinion, a way that a woman can have some say in this process is by dressing in a way that it would attract a man. We have 4 daughters, thank God. And one saying that I say to them often, and sometimes they can't understand me because they're too little. So then I'll tell like my little one, mommy's not talking to you, mommy's talking to your spirit. So just hear what I'm saying, because obviously there's a baby, a spirit that's there too, that's on the milk and eventually onto me. So say, mommy's talking to your spirit. And I'll tell them, we're going to dress in our family, our body is holy, and we're going to dress in a way that forces the world to look at your face so that they can see the light of the Messiah through your eyes. And when you start in a way that forces the world to look at who you are, then that's when they learn to love that. And if they can love that, then everything else is already a slam dunk. You don't have to have the body let's work on our bodies and be holy temples, be mindful of what we're putting in, of course, all those wonderful things. But when a man falls in love with who you are, then it doesn't really matter. Nothing after that matters, and that should give us comfort and assurance for the years to come. And that's why, as a Proverbs 31 wife, we can laugh at the days to come, because we have such confidence that our husband and our children are rising up and calling us blessed, because what they fell in love with was the Spirit of God inside of me. And that's always a constant. Me, you can't depend on me. I'm impatient, I'm this, I'm that, whatever. But if they can see the Spirit of God inside of you, because your dress and your attitude, those are the things that are shining, and not your body, your jewelry, your cell phone, things that are fleeting, then you'll create a long-term connection that'll last a lifetime.
That's right.
Wow.
That's awesome.
That was great. I was going to ask you another question, but you already kind of answered it. So I will revert it to Moses and get his view on this. What standards do you think most men and women should have when dating?
What standards they have? Should they have with dating? I would say I'm going to have to harp on what Sarah said about the inside pretty. And that's one thing we try to coach our kids in is, what's most important is your inside pretty, and our son, your inside handsomeness. Because once you have that, no one can tell you that you don't look good. It doesn't matter if someone doesn't think you look good on the outside or whatever, but because what matters is what you are on the inside and how you treat people and how you mimic Christ, right? Because there's no one perfect in the world, but our job is to strive to be perfect like Christ. The only one perfect was Christ, and we're called to strive to be perfect like Him. And I feel like if we as men have that standard of going into a relationship with the standard of, okay, what is she like on the inside? Then out of that births amazing relationships, strong relationships. It's just like when you go out and you build a home, you want to have a foundation, right? A strong foundation that you can build upon, right? And I feel that rock, that solid rock, that concrete, that firm foundation that everyone needs in a relationship is that focus on the inside pretty.
I want water. The testimony of our relationship cut out when we were going over our hills, but I'm a proponent of any woman I'm discipling or in a relationship with concerning marriage. So if y'all haven't heard me yet, girls and boys too, love is a choice, not a feeling. I didn't have any feelings for Moses when I went on a date with him. I didn't have feelings for him even after we fasted that evening and at 7 o'clock broke fast and talked, but I heard the word of the Lord in that moment, and all it was in that moment was just move forward one step. That's usually what it is. It's just that next step. And I heard take a step of faith. Moses heard take a leap of faith. It was basically the same as, in fact, it was the same phrase that we had heard, take a leap of faith, I think. Regardless, so I did, even though my feelings weren't there yet, because remember, above all, the heart is deceptive, and out of it flows the course of life. And so we don't want to be led by something that we're promised is deceptive. You know, the world will tell you, follow your heart. Does it feel good? Does it look good? Does he bring you joy? Those are fine questions, maybe, but those are like symptoms of something else that's deeper. And so we know already that your heart is deceptive. And so to follow it would be a terrifying, terrible journey. It would be the roller coaster of the reason why so many people run into the D word. Mo and I say that for when a marriage separates, we just don't choose to speak it because it has no room or place in our life. But because I believe a lot of those have been rooted in thinking that love is somehow a choice. I mean, a feeling, but it never was. If I married Moses because I fell into love, then what happens when I fall out of it or I get back up and I fall into it again with, God forbid, a coworker or someone else? As in, feelings should never be the indicator. In my opinion, it should first be, is this man suitable? Is he sober? Is his walk with God fearing? Does he love the Lord? Does he have a good witness with his community? Do the brothers around him, are they a good indicator of the journey he wants to be on? And as you start studying these outside factors, then you can start asking the inner ones, is he handsome enough that I can handle this guy for the rest of my life? You know, I mean, those are important things, but I have found that as I've allowed my choice to let him make a decision, now I'm just enjoying, like, I love his body, I love his face, I love his style, I love how he is. But these are I discovered years into our relationship, and I mean years, even his teeth. It's like these are delights that I've discovered on the way because I've chosen to love my husband, and I will never choose to stop it. Does that make sense?
I do. I love it. I feel like we're twins. Oh my gosh. Y'all are the other version. Y'all the other version up there. Look, I love it. And what I'm going to do right now is just any questions that anyone, if they're watching, that they have, just post in the comments below, and I'll be able to see them. And then I'm going to ask this last question. This is really good before we end. And this question right here is there a certain time frame that someone should date a person they are dating to marriage? I've met people. Someone said I was 7 years resting in him. I don't know. It was a long rest. You know, what's your thoughts? That's what I thought too. That's a coma.
That's a
coma.
Go
ahead.
You can go first.
I always ask people about peace. I think it's not possible for an extended period of time, and by extended, at least a couple of weeks in your heart on a specific topic, where if you have the peace of God and no matter what someone is saying, you just still are feeling a peace. I think that's the first thing to look at. I think that there's a community involvement is very important because they're a witness to who you are. So if everyone in your community is saying no and you still have a peace, I would question that peace. And in fact, I would go as far to say you're perhaps deceived if everyone in your community is saying, no, girl, no, or you have to be careful. There are instances where you can defy gravity, but you want to be very careful in that circumstance. And so for me, it's always the peace of God in my community. And if you have parents involved that are in a loving place, then I think their words should hold weight and should step above community because they raised you. So they know exactly the type of man they've been raising you to marry too. But ultimately, it's that peace with God, I would say.
I'm going to have to go with the peace of God as well. But I'm also going to have to go with, man, if you know that you're supposed to get married, I would say go for it. You know, and a lot of people say, man, we just want to get financially ready so we can hop into it or whatnot. It's like, when are you going to be financially ready? You know what I'm saying? Just get into it. On one thing that Sarah and I hopped on was do not burn with passion.
Right. Yeah. Right?
Relationship, and you know that this wife is your wife or this husband is your husband, and it's like man, we have feelings, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, man, what are we waiting for? That's why with Sarah and I, we were engaged and married, and not married, engaged, going out and courting and whatnot, and they got to the point where it was like, what are we waiting on? We know we're supposed to get married, and we guys literally we planned our marriage and everything in 2 weeks. Whoa, 2 weeks.
Well, but we did January 7th to February 14th, a whole year and a month. Then we are engaged. You can check it out on YouTube on February 14th.
I saw that one.
Yeah. And then we got married November 29. So we were.
What's the YouTube? What's your?
It's just, you can say Moses Ihambi Proposal.
Okay.
Or Sarah or Sarah Ihambi Proposal. It's all the same.
It was at the game.
Yeah, it was homecoming.
You
court.
remember that boy?
He's passing down the crown to the next king, and then it was also Valentine.
Killing it. I'm still trying to outdo it.
All right. That movement has passed. All right.
We got a vow renewal coming up. I'm gonna try to get her at the Sixers game if I can get her there.
So all of you can go to YouTube and look and just type this in, Moses Ihambi Proposal, and you can go ahead and watch that beautiful story.
It's also our first kiss too. That was our first kiss too.
Hey.
All right. This has been really good. I know we're gonna probably have to have you back again.
Definitely.
And we're so sorry for all of that. We're trying to get this makeshift studio up so that there's not light and
look, it's quite all right. We want to thank both of you, Sarah and Moses, for allowing us to interview you and for being a part of our show and sharing your dating story and some tips that singles can benefit from. In addition to that, we want to thank you for your willingness to be transparent. A lot of times when people kind of get on this platform, it can be time to throw up a facade, and the transparency that you guys were able to communicate, it definitely rained through. So we really appreciate that as well.
And for those who are, if you just hopped on, that's not his real color of his hair. No. It's actually black, what he's filming, and that's why all the moving around, which is fine, because you know what? That's real life. That's what happens. So you guys get a taste of that. So thank you so much, Alfred, for showing up as my co-host and working with me. Thanks so much to all of the listening audience for tuning in. Definitely share this with someone that you know that is single, maybe someone who's dating or who isn't. And also, we would like to remind you that our official I Am Me Millennial International launch party will be held May 23rd, 2020. So more information is going to be coming along with the registration details. What'd you say?
Yeah, so if you have any questions, everybody that's watching the live, I know this is going to circulate a little bit more, but if you have any questions you want to kind of throw out, even though we may not address them this time, we would love to kind of circle back and have a couple different perspectives. We're fortunate enough where a lot of the people that we have access to got married around the same time that we did, and had met typically in college. So, with us being married and together for almost 17 years, how long have you guys been married and together total now?
Together total 12 years. Well, maybe 12, and then married 10 in November.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll be hitting 14 in August.
In August.
Yes.
Hey, that's amazing.
Thanks
God.
Well, on that note, we want to tell everybody have a good night and make sure that you tune in next month for our next episode. And I'm just going to hang out here really quick with my guests. So the rest of you guys, bye.